Good morning. Let me pull this up for you all. All right, so you should see this lovely poster in front of you. So the study, the poster was presented at the Education Leadership Conference in Milwaukee last fall for physical therapists. And this was a derivative product from my Ph.D. research. So my interest is in gross anatomy education. I teach gross anatomy 1 and gross anatomy 2 in Austin. There is a lot of debate in the literature with regards to anatomical knowledge retention. The focus of anatomy education being on mostly the what they learn as opposed to the how they learn. And so my research has gone into several different aspects with regards to the how they learn. And part of that is cognitive structure and its visual representation. So there are many domains that have looked at knowledge representation and have used many different indirect methods to be able to represent knowledge, 2 of which are multidimensional scaling, which you can actually perform through SPSS, and the use of Pathfinder networks, which is a separate proprietary software package or program to be able to represent knowledge and to do so either spatially through multidimensional scaling or Pathfinder networks, which are obviously network representations. So the idea is to establish initially to see if there was any criterion related validity in terms of these visual representations in order to understand how students learn concepts related to 2 groups. One is an expert group, specifically domain experts. So those are people that have no clinical degree, but are Ph.D. anatomists. And then there's the expert cognitive structure, which is the I for instructors. So these people are gross anatomy instructors, but do not have a Ph.D. in anatomy, but they have a clinical degree. So when you initially what took place was that there were a list of items related to the shoulder, because that was in the first or gross anatomy 1. And we used physical therapists to take a list of items, anatomical structures, concepts, et cetera, and basically say, hey, these are the ones that are most clinically relevant. So we use that to then create a list of 20 items that were most clinically relevant to the shoulder itself. And then what we did is we put those items to use. The data for both multidimensional scaling and Pathfinder networks is based on pairwise comparison. So you are given combinations of items and you have to decide whether or not they are perceptually similar or dissimilar. You compare all the items. So obviously with 20 items, there are 190 comparisons, but they go by really quickly. And then you use these software approaches to represent the data. So what you can see in the middle section is that multidimensional scaling throughout is representative of these knowledge or cognitive structures. And the clustering of items, which is pretty hard to see, but the clustering of items is very similar. Pathfinder networks are very interesting in the sense that students tend to not make very good or very robust connections, as you can see on the bottom right. Instructors make much more robust connections, and domain experts are even more so. So what does this tell us? The visual representations, first of all, yes, in this domain, we can represent knowledge visually. That's a good thing to know. We do know that there's internal coherence. So I represent my information in a way that is coherence, student does as well, but they don't necessarily agree. They will occupy similar relationships spatially, and they will also be linked in a similar fashion. And then if you look at the actual level of criterion-related validity, there isn't, if you look at agreement between students and experts, there is concurrent validity between the student and the expert, and it's better with instructors than it is with domain experts, which is, I think, an intuitive thing. But there's also predictive validity in that your agreement with your instructor or agreement with instructors is actually predictive of your grade in that unit, which is very valuable because it would be helpful for us to be able to use this in a formative fashion in order to be able to assess where they are in the learning process and are they making progress towards the knowledge structure or the cognitive structure of an instructor. And that is all I have to present. Trying to stay aware of, as I think everybody knows, you can get into a topic and you're 30 minutes into the weeds. So I'm only 5 minutes into the weeds.
Any questions?
Not so much a question, but Alan, those Pathfinder network plots are really interesting. Where did you come across that representation of data? I haven't seen that before.
It just, as I was looking at other domains, it just kept coming up fairly regularly. Multidimensional scaling is one that comes up a lot. Pathfinder had to do a little bit of digging in terms of other domains, but then it started to appear fairly regularly. But both of them have kind of been out of vogue, honestly. And it was one of the things that got brought to my attention in terms of, well, those are not very recent. And they said, well, I mean, I'm not in control of the literature. If somebody's not using them, I don't know why. But as it turns out, I think in our domain for physical therapist education and certainly for gross anatomy education, both seem to provide different and the Pathfinder more granular representation, which I think is hugely valuable.
Yeah, I'm already drawing connections from pathophys to cardiopulm and anatomy and trying to like connect all those dots as well.
And that's just a small subset. So that's just concepts related to the shoulder. So who knows what this looks like when you expand it into a broader picture.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.